And action. We're calling the meeting to order officially for the tape, people on the tape. So we'll start with welcome. Hey everyone, good to see you. It's been a while, love you. Missed you all. Maria's not with us, she's at the Visit Denver Retreat. Neither is Paul, he's also at the Visit Denver Retreat, as well as our esteemed council president, the Honorable Aloysius Brooks. That's not his real middle name, but I just made it up. Who doesn't have a middle name?
I don't have it either.
Hey, how's he doing health-wise?
You know, he's doing pretty. Oh, Chai's going to give an update.
Okay, good.
Do we have any visitors here who are here for the first time?
Actually, I'm not a visitor, but I definitely want to take an opportunity to, for folks who've been paying attention, Kelly Lee has transitioned over to National Western, and Anna Jones has stepped in as the executive director for NWC, and we're in that process of completing that team. And we just added, someone to the team who I believe is going to take us to a whole nother level. He's actually here for the first time. Morgan Hartley is our new director of communications for NWC-CAC.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Morgan.
So there will be an opportunity for us to kind of interact with Morgan as we begin to get us all out in the community. So I just wanted to take a personal privilege to introduce Morgan, the new director of communications for NWC-CAC.
I'm looking forward to working with all of you, and I'll be around quite a bit. So I hope to get to know all of you over the coming months.
Oh, thank you. Welcome. Any other newly visiting people? Drew, you're not new.
I just had a question.
Okay.
So, Michael, I'm sorry I missed the first part of what you said. So are you part of the communications for NWC now? Or?
Yes, I am. Not necessarily communications, but more so community affairs.
Okay.
Any other visitors? New people?
I'm new.
Okay, introduce yourself, please.
Jane Johnson, Jacobs.
Okay, welcome, Jane.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, all those Jacobs Engineering. Thank you, all those folks who are here, and we have a sparse crowd, but we're still mighty in spirit. Paul's not here, so we won't have a stock show update, WSSA update, unless Ron has one.
The only thing, the only thing I have, which really isn't part of the NWC-CAC, but I want to give everybody, I have information on the upcoming Riot Fest, which starts next Friday at our complex. So I've got information for everybody, just kind of a basic details, what's going on and so forth. So whoever wants that, I do have sheets on that.
What's it called again?
Riot Fest?
That was the big party from last year. I don't know if it's a big concert, multi-stage.
Yeah, they got 3 stages going basically simultaneously, and they'll start Friday at noon and go through Sunday night. And John's the dancer.
I'm not sure.
I don't even.
What's that?
I don't even know what I just saw. I'm just going to leave that alone. Wow.
Let it all hang out.
That's right. Party.
Hell yeah.
Party.
We've been working like hell. We're trying to party.
Well, I'm actually dancing Saturday night and Dancing with the Denver Stars at Cleo Parker Robinson dance.
Terrence, I'm going to be there. I'm going to take so many.
Yeah, so no. If anybody from here is going to be there, I'm actually wearing a special top, that new metal that it keeps you from showing up in pictures or video, and so you're not allowed to video me. Jocelyn, CSU update.
Chief Commander Keller sent it to me earlier.
Okay, so do you have it? Oh, sorry. I didn't know it started over there.
Oh, we got Jocelyn.
Neither hosting a giant concert nor Dancing with the Stars. But CSU is hosting for the 3rd year a pet wellness clinic at Focus Points in October, on October 15th. This year we are also, so in the past 2 years we've partnered with Pet Aid, which provides donor subsidized care for qualified low-income families for their pets. So in the past 2 years, we've provided vaccinations and exams. This year, we are also partnering with Denver Dumb Friends League to offer free spay and neuter. So I will ask you all for some help in getting the word out to families who might be able to come and take advantage of those services on October 15th. It'll be at Focus Points as it has been the last 2 years.
that dogs and cats, did you say?
Yes, I believe so. I'll confirm, but yeah, I think it's both dogs and cats.
Tell us the dates again.
October 15th.
Okay, so if you can give something, we'll get it into the roundup.
Great.
Yeah.
We'll skip Kelly for now and come back to him during the NWC projects update. He'll also be giving the NDCC update this evening. Our council president, as I said earlier, is not here, and our council district representative for here, Albus Brooks. But in his place, he sent his trusty sidekick, Chai Montoya, to give an update.
I'm Chai Montoya again, Chief of Staff for Councilman Brooks, also newly elected Council President Elvis Brooks. He just wanted to thank everyone for your kind words, your love and support during the time that he's been out battling and overcoming his cancer, and also the death of his father. So he just wanted me to tell everyone thank you. He will be here next month, and I know we have a lot of work to continue doing in GPS. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Chai.
Thanks, Terrence.
We'll switch over to our community representative reports. We'll start with Drew and/or Ann.
Regarding, we had the Executive Oversight Committee meeting today, this afternoon. Is Kelly going to, is somebody also going to review, present that? Because I feel that sometimes I'm kind of,
Kelly probably will.
they can tell it better. So Kelly will go through that. There's just, I think there's not been a lot happening really. We missed July, we had no meeting. The one thing I do want to discuss, and maybe when Kelly, if Kelly is going to present, particularly, so there's a bunch of procurements out. There's the econ study, the RFQ for parking, RFPs for project communications and marketing, and project management. And then the other things that I think that are on the radar or on the horizon that we really want to stay on top of is the campus placemaking framework, which I think has a lot of implications for the community and the neighborhoods regard to the public realm and design standards and guidelines. So maybe when Kelly will present that, probably more in depth. I don't really have a lot else to report from the Executive Oversight Committee this time.
And Kelly's here, so he'll get to his part when he'll touch all those subjects a little later. Thank you, Drew. Armando, is there any update from, I guess it's COFAS now?
Yeah, we haven't met. There's been some, shuffling around with staff and stuff, and then the last thing got postponed, so
Okay.
that's basically what's happening there.
All right, thank you. And AE, is there anything from EPAS?
Well, a couple things with the impasse. I think probably the most significant development is that after a series of conversations regarding activating in the more near term using the National Western Center facilities to try and get some things going. The group did a couple tours, and the folks who deal with the nuts and bolts and nitty-gritty of events criteria worked with the National Western to identify, I'm not sure, 3 or 4, Kelly, how many sites?
Up to 4.
3 or 4 possible venues that could be activated in some way that would help bring some of the neighborhoods onto into the footprint instead of waiting for the entire 10 years when we reach total construction. So I consider that very significant. One thing I wanted to tell the group that I said in the course of that conversation, when Michael very graciously suggested that the National Western Center needs to continue being a business and make revenue for the use of the facilities. Its economy needs to continue. But Mike did graciously raise the question of, well, can the neighborhood groups possibly get a break or a reduced rate? And I did say that we have to remember that the National Western Center is a nonprofit organization, and that I think, and that my stance was that I would like to see the National Western Center budget start to generate revenues directly into neighborhoods' engagement in a way that's very traceable and tangible. And so I came down on that side, and I welcome people to have conversations about that. And some of the infrastructure and budgeting is over my head, but I think, so I just wanted to put that out because I wish for a model where we can bring things from the subcommittees to this group and be vetted before we say things, but that's the way we have it set up. Secondly, the conversation happened prior to the meeting, and it was announced during this meeting, in the last EPAS meeting, that the business committee was going into hiatus. That's my word. Until, I think there was a quick reference made in the roundup. So it's not going to meet until the way it's stated, the co-chairs feel that there's business to be taken care of. I want the group to know that to me, that's a disappointment and a reflection of a makeup of the group and the mission of the group that I hope that we can discuss. Because to me, the Events Programming Advisory Subcommittee is at its best an area where we can bring together creativity and create some momentum for doing what I've been calling soft programming, or to support some of the possible content-related activities with MOU partners. Some of the agricultural things that we can do with CSU, business mentoring, some of the things that can become part of the institutional support that the National Western as a model will offer to the neighborhoods and that kind of thing. So I question that, and I hope that we will continue the conversation and people will be more inclined to step up and see this as direct engagement, because a lot of things are defaulting to other models that I think we need to discuss and get more visionary and activists. So I just want to keep that on the table. I hate that it feels contentious to people. I don't mean it, but I really do feel that programming is something that can happen with intent and a clear sky, and that there's a lot we can do directly with educational institutions and things that are very creative and that can create more common ground. Beyond that, the discussion is mostly, I think there's a good PowerPoint that is probably going to be posted at the CAC site that shows the venues that were sort of corralled out for possible use. And we'll have an opportunity to really learn how to activate venues with all the regulations and all the things like that. So the CAC has an opportunity to get creative with that too. So they hope of bringing more programming out to the neighborhoods is good. Is on discussion too. So I don't know if anybody else was there. I can't remember who was there.
Okay, thank you, AE. Armando wanted to go back.
Oh, wait. She was
Terrence, I
Oh.
just want to say, AE, thank you for that synopsis. I think it'd be great if this group got to see the PowerPoint, because it was really helpful, I think, to see the spaces that are available for programming right now. And also, I just wanted to give you a shout out for organizing the block party and for inviting us from the museum to be there at Argo Park. And I think we saw about 120 different neighbors come and build rockets, and it was a great success. And it's the kind of event that I think we at the museum are really interested in pursuing with you, and we hope those conversations and things will continue to bubble.
So I appreciate that, and let me say that Global Cares, the neighborhood group, and the street kids that have done, thank you for that, and we appreciate the museum. That was a celebration, and Michael Sapp in the mayor's office partnered with us, Health Resource. The backpack push with Garden Place Academy was kind of handed off to us to raise money for that, and we had some more money come in that's going to be directed to Swansea. I think there was, the Rocket Fest was a great, people loved it. This was an opportunity for the MOU partners to kind of come out to the neighborhood, and the response was great. And I think there was actually almost 400 or more people that came to the park that day. 95% residential, about 30% youth. It was fantastic, so thank you for mentioning that. And I think that the best is yet to come with that. The potential for these events is tremendous, direct engagement. So
Thank you.
And we're going to make sure that, or at least Liz will, that the PowerPoint regarding the venues gets circulated. And as far as the CAC is concerned, I don't believe there's anything that keeps us from discussing what type of events community events can happen from the CAC perspective, and be a spearhead to make that happen from here. Even though the E-Pass is on hiatus, so to speak, I still think there's a role for the CAC to play in developing some community engagement pieces on a go-forward basis. Oh, thank you again, AE. And Armando.
Yes, just wanted to share with everyone that I know Kelly went out to USDA, I think back a couple months ago. Well, the folks over at Garden Place, we met with USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, back in February, and we are going to get a grant from the United States Department of Agriculture to help with the garden over there in Colorado State University with Jocelyn. Here will be working with us to help cultivate that. So you talk about community engagement, I think that's a fine example of that at its best. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Michael for helping out the kids over there at Garden Place, providing some backpacks. Noah was a big part of that, and Vernon Hill and Nancy as well. So again, thank you to all.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes.
Maybe a little premature, but in the proposed ballot issue on the new budget that the Denver Public Schools is putting forward this fall, do you know, is there any money earmarked for renovation of projects at Garden Place? Armando, do you know?
No, I mean, we've been over there. I mean, and Noah can attest to this. We've been beating that animal, whatever you want to call it, to death over there. And it's really unfortunate that school had an earmark of $12 and renovations that needed. School, as you know, has been neglected for over 100 years, and they did a Band-Aid approach. As you know, when you walk up to the school, the dumpsters are right in there. It gives you a bad odor, bad impression. A lot of that stuff still needs to be, there's so many improvements that need still to move forward.
If they're going to ask us to vote on the bond issue, now's the time to make some specific demand, not requests, some demands from them regarding Garden Place School.
We have been doing that. Well, we have, and right now we're in the process of working with OED, Office of Economic Development. Michael was in on those meetings.
No, I mean specifically on the proposed bond issue.
DPS is bond, not the
Yeah, no, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that there's other priorities unless, we can get up there and get Lisa Flores, have her come in here and do a presentation to us. It's going to be hard to get anything
Maybe
done.
you and I can get together and
Okay.
more details on it. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the final draft approval for the CAC guidelines and criteria, and I'll hand it over to Liz for that.
Great. So last meeting, we did our final edits and input to the document. People asked for a final clean version before you officially adopted it. So I just made a final clean version and emailed it out to everyone last week. Just passed around another copy of it. I'm wondering if anybody has any edits or caught any things that need to be fixed, and if they did, if they would share that now. If they didn't, I think I'll ask the facilitator, Terrence Carroll, to entertain a motion. So,
I'll entertain a motion to adopt.
Second.
oh,
Well, I didn't
yeah.
really make the motion. John made the motion,
I'll second.
and Heather seconded.
Can there be discussion?
Yep.
Yeah, that's where we are now in the process. Yeah. Discussion. Drew.
I guess, Nola, I put you on the spot because you kind of brought this up, but I really don't see any kind of formal authority or power that this committee really has. I mean, I think we had talked about that. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot about it, but I think you articulated it the best. I mean, what really is, maybe we have none.
Well, I would say, Drew, I mean, you're on the EOC, so you carry our, opinions about different issues, and you have a voting slot in the EOC, so I think that's where our power lies.
Okay.
And this committee was never set up to have any formal authority per se. Its authority comes in the fact that it's de facto authority in the sense that the members of the community sit on this and then are empowered to voice the concerns or support of the community on different issues that impact the National Western. AE.
I just want to quickly ask, I think, Kobe, you're on the CAC. Do you mind joining us at the table? Is there anybody else back there that's a voter that's, I just would love for us to be sure that we reinforce that we know, because I miss you at the tables. Secondly, so I wanted to say that on one hand I agree with Ann, but I do think it's an important issue, but I really feel like it is an unknown what the power of this is. It's not like if we vote something down, the city's not going to do it or they are going to do it. I think it's, and I think this is a part of what we have to really talk about as we go into the permanent governance. And I feel like when this came up before, I kind of would say the same thing I said to you, Nola, which I think was, it's kind of how we engage to get things brought to the attention of what's going on at large and how it's impacting the neighborhoods and how we get more people involved and talking to the city and a constituency engagement. And I think that's part of what we have to answer by asking this new code office to put on the table with us the conversation. I think this was mentioned at the EOC meeting this afternoon. Drew, I don't know if you remember any of the details, Kelly, the discussion about the governance, the next phase of governance, the permanent authority, I guess you could call it. How that is going to engage an advisory committee is important, is part of that discussion. So I think some of it's going forward, we have to ask that question. Is that the proper term, permanent? An authority that's going to be...
So the intent has always been that the current structure is an interim structure so that the project could proceed while we work through all these issues. I mean, we have partners that need to raise money. We, at the time the EOC was established, the House bill hadn't even been established yet, so it was a way to advance the project and not wait. But the intent is to have a permanent public authority, and there's a process we're going to go through to establish, the city will establish that authority. It will have a board of directors that will be identified and appointed by the mayor. And then that authority will have certain powers to then both oversee the design, construction, and eventual operation of the campus.
And I think part of our advocacy is how do we beat the drum for how are the residential constituencies part of that mind trust and part of that authority. I mean, is this advisory committee, along the lines of what Drew's asking, is this advisory committee similar to, say, the advisory committee, Mayor's Office of Sustainability Advisory Committee? I mean, is there an equivalent?
So there, I know roughly about how that group is organized. I mean, each agency that has advisory committees, and that's a good example, has its own kind of constitution. So what you're doing here is reflective of your approach to governance, right, or to engagement. It's been a while since I've looked at those documents, but each one looks a little different depending upon the charge of the respective agency. Obviously, this is unique in that this isn't just the city. You have state, you have state money involved. You're ultimately going to have federal money involved. I mean, there's going to be a substantial public sector investment. There already is one. There's going to be private sector investment, and there has to be a deliberative structure that's accountable back to its respective structure. So the city has a role, the city council has a role because we're using city money as approved by the citizens of Denver. We have a responsibility back to the state of Colorado on two fronts because of the sources of funds. So we're going to take a year roughly between now and this time next year is because of all those legal issues that we have to work through to identify the appropriate structure, but it will be a public authority. And we don't know what it looks like yet because we have to work through that. But in the meantime, we're going to keep moving forward and making decisions through the Executive Oversight Committee to advance the project.
I'll get you a second, John, because Rondo's up next. But I did want to kind of respond quickly. Well, it's not even a response, but to kind of clarify and bring back to folks' memory how the CAC was formed. Unlike advisory groups other advisory groups within the city, we were never formally created by the city. This was something that came out of Councilwoman Montero's heart and passion for this project. And so this was really never formally recognized by the city as an advisory group of the city. It's really something along the lines of a bunch of folks in the community who have an interest in what's happening in the neighborhood coming together to organize themselves into a working group of sorts. That's essentially where we are. We're not a registered neighborhood organization, and I'm not sure if we really wanted to do that, simply because we would step on the toes of other registered neighborhood organizations already in the area. And I believe that as this project goes forward and other things happen, because of the way the city ordinances are written, all the RNOs, depending on the type of project that's happening, will have a voice in what happens with those projects, much like they do in development that happens around the city right now. Armando.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that needs to be incorporated in this document as an appendix or some version thereof, and I spoke to Anna Jones and wish Mike was still here, I'm not sure if he's still here or not. We talked about a neighborhood agreement. And a neighborhood agreement would work in this fashion. As many of you know or don't know, 80216, this is an example of how I see a neighborhood agreement would work. 80216, in terms of zoning violations, receives the most zoning violations out of all the for lack of better words, all the zip codes in the city and county in general. 80216 gets it the most, which happens to be our neighborhood here. And when I say I envision our neighborhood agreement working in, is that we as neighbors would help that person, whoever got that citation, provided that they wanted help, we would collectively get together and try to solve or resolve those issues. That's what I mean by a neighborhood agreement, and I think that would be a working instrument as an appendix to this. And I know Anna Jones was interested in that, as we can put a subcommittee to work on that and be able to help. So we have an instrument to not put teeth into this, but to support this in a way that will help strengthen our community in terms of being able to enhance the quality of life.
And that's been an ongoing conversation that this group has been having. I think the issue that we still have to resolve with that is if we have and it's not unusual to have neighborhood agreements, MOUs of some sort. I mean, it's happened down in Cherry Creek and other places. Those have always been with RNOs. And so the question is, how do you make that happen for a group like this? And so that's a longer conversation than this evening. John.
That's where we got stuck last.
That's where we got stuck. That's right. John.
I think that if we look at where we've come from to the point of the accomplishments that we have to date, there's a hell of a lot more work to be done. I am not a big stickler as to what's written. I think we, as a committee, in advisory capacity, we've not been ignored. We haven't been abused. We haven't been taken advantage of. And I think that we've come a long way from where we first started. And we've developed some mutual trust. And I think 10, 15 years from now, we will be evaluated not by what's written, but rather by our actions. And I think this group, as we are, can accomplish a whole lot more than we already have. When you stop and realize what we've done, a lot of people say, you're crazy, it's nearly impossible. We're talking about $1 billion, and we did it. And it wasn't written how to do it. Our actions spoke to that. And a lot of people work together to get it done. And I would suggest that we continue along that same course, using this as a guide. My entire life, I've never been bound by guidelines or what the city says or what they don't say. Our voices in these neighborhoods have been ignored for such a damn long time, but it behooves us, along with the people that are doing business here, to pursue our mutual interests and get these things done. This is the best thing that's ever going to happen in this part of the city. And we shouldn't get bogged down into what's written. We should put more effort into what can be done.
Thank you, John. AE.
Terrence, I just want to I want to add a quick, I guess maybe flourish, if that's the word, to what you were saying about how the CAC was convened. I think it's important to put an exclamation point on the CAC, the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee, in its first presentation, which was here, and Kelly, I'm sure you were there, and we talked about how, as one of the 6 pillars of the NWC-CAC, the full attention of the Globeville area Swansea neighborhood plans was part of what was to be kept at the heart of things with the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee. So I respectfully have a little bit different concept from it being, you know, you're describing it a little more informally than I'm taking it. I wouldn't even expect it to be an RNO. I feel like it's the MOU partners directly working with the neighborhood constituency and the administrative and developing management and strategic plan of the National Western in a bit more formal way to help assure the interests of the Globeville area and Swansea constituency in the context of neighborhood planning. And I think we've seen it brought very successfully to the composition of the National Western Center master plan. And so now the implementation, that's the drum we have to keep beating. You know, are we getting the investments across the neighborhoods where we're making the new connections? Are the parking studies taking care of the populations and the quality of life? That kind of thing. So I just kind of, it's a little bit different emphasis, I think, and I think that's part of our obligation.
And I don't think you're saying anything different. I just described it in a much different way, because when I talk about us being formal or informal, it's strictly in the sense that we're not authorized by the city by any stretch of the imagination. We're an autonomous group, and I think, personally, I prefer that, because we're not beholden to appointments by anyone at the city or what their dictates are, what their beliefs are. I mean, this is an autonomous group, and it's important that we remain autonomous, in my opinion. Heather.
Is there a reason, a legal reason why the city couldn't have a neighborhood agreement with, or some sort of agreement with a non-registered or an entity outside of a registered neighborhood agreement?
I don't think so. I think the problem, the issue that we got hung up on before is that the CAC is not, doesn't have any legal standing. And generally, these neighborhood agreements are enforceable.
Is there some other mechanism that we might explore to get at the same spirit of what?
Oh yeah, I think there is. It's just a question of people putting their minds to it. I think there could be an MOU of some sort, although it could be a non-binding MOU between the CAC and the city. I mean, there are different things that we can do. I just think that when it got placed on the shelf, we never came back to it. And this is probably a good time to come back to it now that we're, as Armando said, it's probably a good time to come back to it and in some way making an attachment to this.
So I think one thing you also have to keep in mind is that, you know, this was to kind of give you guidelines for operating as this group. But as Kelly's talked about, you know, as we move into the future, there is going to be, we know there's a different governance and relationship structure coming up. And so the question is whether, as they're developing that governance structure, this group can begin to think about what is it that we want to see out of that, and maybe that can be one session. You know, as they're starting to work on that governance structure, then this group needs to say, you know, here are the things that we think are important for the, you know, for the citizens and the GES neighborhoods. And so it may not be developing that neighborhood agreement now, but it may be talking about what's that relationship going to be under the new governance structure. And maybe we spend the time, as you know, as the process of governance is being developed, to also talk about it in this group and see if the idea of a neighborhood agreement or you know, some other form of kind of formalized communication with the city is something that would work. So that would be, you know.
AE. I thought I said it in my head, but I didn't verbalize it.
I appreciate that there are neighborhood agreements and there was a benefits agreement discussed in the past, and it can circle back to everything, but I wanted to just say to the group, the budget calendar is cooking right now, and I'm going to say what I said last year too. My personal feeling is we've got neighborhood plans, we've got a master plan, we've got a work plan, tiers of projects. I want us to be in the city budget, and I'm hoping with Anna Jones's report with the NWC that we can get to some of the nitty-gritty about the projects in the different departments like Public Works, Parks, NUCO office that are going to be money on the streets in the neighborhoods. And so I'm come down on, let's get on with this budget process. The hearings are in September. Let's get the dollars and cents, let's get the projects going. I frankly feel sometimes we defeat ourselves, and I probably will support the neighborhood agreement, but I feel like we defeat ourselves. I'm with John around, our actions speak louder than our words in some sense. And there was a time when John addressed the thin line too between what's NDCC general and what's the NWC priorities, and I think we have to be clear about that. I'm in support of zoning, helping people with zoning problems. Armando and I worked on a major state resident precedent for that important protection, but I'm thinking that's more of an NDCC general project, and it's been percolating along then as NWC. So I just want to get on the budget, get the projects, and get these procurement things to really have GDS in their spotlights. We have no more time. Budget hearings are in September. The mayor is working on his budget right now. I want this group to be an advisory with budget lines and dollars in conjunction, in collaboration with the NUCO staff. That's what I want.
I hear you. That has its risk and its rewards. With city money comes city control. And that's my concern, is that if we accept city money for the CAC.
Oh, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what we're doing in the neighborhoods.
Okay, that's a separate discussion from what we're.
Money, I think.
No, I hear you on that then. If we can come back to that as a separate discussion at some point. Okay.
But, yeah, no, we're talking about what's.
Well, I'm always cynical about money from the government. So I'm gonna bring us back to this. Is there, Drew, did we address?
I think so. I mean, I was looking to maybe embed some kind of formal structure or make explicit kind of what we were, because our status is kind of whimsical. We could just easily be one day decide we shouldn't be here and maybe we're not. And so, but I think we are an advisory body and we've been given a chance, and I agree with John, is that the onus is on us. We don't really have formal power except maybe through me on the executive oversight.
Which, if I may say, I don't know of any recent example in the city, so within recent times, where a deliberative body like this that represents 3 neighborhoods, right, both residential and business interests, that have a formal seat on a city-led effort that has a vote. Now, that may or may not mean anything, but in terms of context, because when we went through and thought about, are there examples of this direct link, maybe Mickey knows of one, but because you've been developing in the city for a long time, but I can't think of one recent time, maybe DUSPA, but I'd have to go back to the early boards of the Denver Union Station, where a neighborhood, this is a collective of neighborhoods that have come together with a single purpose around a project that also have a formal representative who votes on behalf of the neighborhoods and the interests of the neighborhoods to move the project forward. I can't think of another example. And again, I just say that just for context.
And then I would say that we don't need to, in this document, have that formalized, because that's really at a different level. So the documents for the EOC say that there's a seat from this group. And, there's probably something else that says that this group should be, right? And so it's not us putting it into this document. It's some upper level entity that says this group should exist and for its purpose. So I think that codifies it. Not
Well, in the mayor's appointment of the body, it calls out the neighbor, this CAC representative. Obviously you were selected, but it calls specifically this group out in his appointment.
That's true. Betty, and then AE.
I feel that as I look around the room and see everybody that's been put these different parts of this group, I think they chose the best. I think they did a really good job in choosing them, and I think everybody can get to do their work that they want to do. I think it's going to work out great.
AE.
Back to the one thing I would say, though, that I would I don't know if the word is to codify what part of what this alert is. I don't think, and I can't, maybe Liz, maybe you can help, I can't find the number here, but I feel like I'd like to see it be that the elected people, that somehow elected from this body to the governance is some kind of assurance that the residential constituency would be a priority in that somehow. Because it isn't set down that who's elected to the EOC or the ECAS or the financial committee has to include residents. It's a CAC.
Well, that's up to you guys.
I know that is, but so what I'm saying is. that-
You decide that.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. I know, that's what I'm, okay, Kelly, that's what I'm saying, is this is part of how we decide that. It's a point of discussion, is to say whether or not it's part of the value of the working group here to have residents, to assure that there's some kind of residential constituency. It's a point
John.
of discussion.
What? Residents, we have our own special interests. And we don't have to be authorized by the city or anyone else. We have to speak up for our neighborhood, and this forum is a good venue to do that. But it's the best venue that I've seen in 50 years in this part of the city. And let's grab it and go. When I first met Kelly and the former planning director on 40th Avenue over there, I don't know, what these guys are talking about, we'll find out. I have not been disappointed. We've got the power to exercise and do what we damn well please, as long as it's legally and morally right. But we need to exercise that as residents and bring it back to this group to get it done. So let's move on.
Yeah, at this point, I'm going to pretend like I'm still Speaker of the House and call the question. Well, call the question because we've discussed this frequently over the last several months. 6 months, thank you, Liz. So I think we probably should be prepared to vote at this point. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none.
Sorry,
Nola.
is the vote in agreement that the things, the neighborhood agreement and the part of governance, future governance will be discussed in the future? Is that part of
The motion was just to adopt this document, and then.
But those other two parts are going to be discussed.
Yeah, there's certainly the opportunity, and I think it's a great idea to talk about how, and we can put that as an agenda item.
Yeah, we're going to actually going to put those on the agenda. We're going to come back to that really quickly with the neighborhood agreement. Except we may have to give that just its own meeting, but I'm breaking parliamentary procedure. So, all in favor of adopting the guidelines and criteria, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Seeing none, it's adopted. Boom.
Congratulations.
John.
I want to say just one more thing, then I'll be quiet. I think Liz did a great job in exercising not only her ability, but her patience. And we went through this and went through it, and I'm sure, it's not written in stone.
It's not perfect.
There's going to be changes and modifications in the future, but I think she deserves a hand from us for doing this.
Yeah, two.
Oh, yeah. She has the patience of someone who's raised 2 kids. Absolutely.
I'm about to be an empty nester, so bear with me next month.
Yeah, she's already stressing over it.
Yeah.
So we're going to have NWC project and just regular NWC update, and also Kelly is playing the role of NDCC update as well.
I can't seem to let go of my old job.
No.
So Kelly, I'm wondering if it might be helpful for you guys if he uses the microphone up there. Would that be good? And we don't have multiple microphones, so questions will be a little harder, but I want the translators to be able to, it's hard when we don't have microphones for them to do their job. So I'm just going to ask you, Kelly, to use the microphone. And then as you ask questions, if you would just speak loudly so that our translators can do their job well. Thank you.
Okay. So I will go back to the top of the agenda and just one equity partner update on, I think the press release went out on Monday, was we were awarded by the state of Colorado, the District of Colorado, a state grant, a $200,000 grant to advance the initial planning or the first planning for the conversion of the 1909 stadium arena. So thank you for everybody that put in letters of support for that, and that work it requires now a formal process to procure a firm that will help us Barbara Frommel, who really led the effort for us, yesterday handed me the plaque. And I got goosebumps because it means a lot that one of our first actions on this project was not about a new shiny building, but about protecting their old one. So, that work will commence, and we're going to have lots of discussions about the public market. A big focus of this will be around the structural integrity of the buildings, I recall. So anyway, that went out Monday. Thank you for all your help on that. So today in the Executive Oversight Committee, I laid out, along with some staff members, there's been, although we took July off as an Executive Oversight Committee in terms of a formal meeting, obviously there's been a ton of work preparing for the ultimate implementation of the National Western Center project, which is a big task. And so we have to procure resources and staffing to support that effort. So I'll just run down the list here and stop. I'll pause after each one if you have questions. So the first, is about project reporting. And remember, for reporting, think about for a minute all the different kind of sources of money that are going to flow into this project. So right now what's approved is we have city money through Measure 2C. We have money, two forms of money from the state, one through House Bill 1344, which is certificates of participation, and then the other is the EDC money, which is an increment that we get from the state over drips and drabs over about 36 years. There will be federal money ultimately in this project, both probably for bricks and mortar and programming, and then there will be private money that comes to this project, both in the form of individuals making substantial donations, as well as companies that are part of the effort. So we have to be able to look back and formalize a structure by which we're reporting to all these various entities. I think just on the RTA, which is the Regional Tourism Act alone, I think there are a dozen or so different reports, give or take, that we have to do on an annual basis back to the state. That's just one form of money. So
Kelly?
the reporting RFP yep.
Just a quick question. What is the total fundraising goal?
So the Western Stock Show Association made a commitment to $125 million, $50 million of that being in cash, the balance in other resources. So a large portion of that will come from the transferring of WSSA land over to the city. They will get, there's an appraised value for that land, and they will get credit for that value. I mean, there will be other fundraising, but that's the formal commitment right now.
So about 50 million.
50 million cash, which is not a small exercise.
That's 50 million cash in addition to the property.
In addition to the property. It's 125 million total, 50 of it has to be in cash. So there's a capital campaign that the WSSA board is preparing to launch as early as later this year. And so they've got a big lift to do that. So the reporting will be a firm that has that expertise to report on project reporting and all the various forms of reporting, whether it be to the governor, the city council, the mayor, etc. This group. We are down to, we interviewed the two finalists today, and we have some follow-up to do in terms of checking references, and then the selection committee will reconvene, and then ultimately we'll make a recommendation for a project reporting team. And our goal is to issue at least the first round of reports or initial reports before the end of the year, and then obviously get a formal reporting structure going forward. Any questions on reporting? Okay, program management. So, really big project. The city, the NewCo team, the National Western team is a small team, and we're going to supplement that team with professionals that help us think about big projects, how you deliver them, how you organize them, schedule, critical path, change management, all the things that go into managing a big project. So that RFP is kind of coming together now. It's making its way through the formal city process, and it is right now scheduled to go out, I believe, in mid-September. It's in contracting right now to have the contract form, have a date, but it looks like mid-September is when the program management RFP will go out, or RFQ, and then that will be as we work our way through pre-qualifying firms, and then there's a second step in there where there's proposals submitted, and ultimately a selection and a notice to proceed that will be issued next year, sometime in the first quarter of next year. And then that team will work with our team and our partners to really lay out the formal structure for how we manage this project going forward. So that's program management. Any questions about that? Okay. And I should just say, as a matter of experience, that is a pretty typical approach for this type of project, where you bring a team like this in to help us think through and help manage that work. The next is campus parking management. And so that is, as you recall, we were awarded some money through DRCOG, and that money is close to RTD. We are in a place now where we're ready to issue the RFQ, and I have the schedule here. Find it. Bear with me just a sec. So the schedule is on, the RFQ will get advertised on September 8th. Proposals will be due on September 30th. There will be a notice of selection on October 21st, and then a contract executed with the notice to proceed in early December. And that will be a team that when we bring them on, we'll come back to this group. Because the goal is, again, not only to talk about making sure we have the right mix of parking on the campus, but the campus's relationship to the 4 commuter rail stations that are in the neighborhood, its relationship back to Denver Union Station, its relationship to how we leverage Coors Field parking. So we're taking a regional approach, and in fact we have the selection committee, I believe, and I'm doing this from memory, has representation outside of the city. I think Coors Field is represented, the Rockies are, I think the Rhino Arts District is represented, and I'm doing this from memory. But we're really taking a regional approach about parking, because what we'd love to see, I think, ultimately, is that people park once when they come into this part of the city, and then they have access to e-cycle or Uber or car share or carriage rides, a whole variety of multimodal assets to get them around, and they're not moving around and parking and moving through the neighborhood, but we really take full advantage of the inventory of parking we have and get people around in a more thoughtful way. So that we'll work through that, and I actually have a handout for everybody on this one, because it will be important to this group that we report back on that. Any questions on parking? Okay, moving on.
I'd like to have a quick question.
Sure.
Within that scope is parking and mobility. Is there any study of if there can be like a circulator bus or things that can be attached to the National Western and do cost shares among groups to really get an institutional loop?
That is in there.
Is that in there?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So that's parking, and that'll be managed through Public Works, through the transportation team. Strategic Communications and Marketing, that RFP is out on the street. We held a pre-proposal meeting here. We had 25 different firms represented. It was a big meeting. That's a lot of marketing firms. There's a lot of interest, as you might expect. Proposals are due next week, the 29th. We will then shortlist probably mid-September, and then probably selected late September, early October for strategic marketing and communications for the project. Questions about that?
Do you have criteria for how you're evaluating those?
We're required, yes, we do.
Are any of those being able to work with the neighborhood?
So say more, so I understand what you're asking.
Just, maybe a level of cultural competency, maybe a willingness or experience that we would need in these neighborhoods.
Yes, that there was those specific requests in the document for them to be responsive to that. And again, I would imagine as part of our overall team, they will be participating and coming to this group as we roll this project out. Okay. That's true of I'm making that commitment. There's not an RFP that we will issue out of our office that doesn't have that in mind. And we don't expect people to be knowledgeable about the neighborhood plans and how this project helps advance those plans. So that's Brighton Boulevard, which is 44th. Obviously, there's a lot of activity going on south of I-70. So this project is issued an RFP for Brighton Boulevard 100% design from 44th to Race Court. That's the National Western segment Brighton Boulevard. We received 2 proposals back. Both of those proposals will go to the interview process, and then ultimately we'll select a firm, and that will happen early part of September. And then that group will again be another one that probably we bring back to this group, as well as other groups in the community to talk through the design of that segment. And the goal is that the segment between 47th and Race Court, which is closest to where the RTD station will be, the North Metro line, that section we're trying to align not just the design but ultimately the construction, so that that segment could be complete if everything were to line up when the station opens. So that we're really working hard to get 47th to Race Court, these aspects of that built as part of the station. That work also includes design of 49th, which does not exist today. 49th will punch through the GPS bus barn site to create more direct connections from the neighborhood to the transit site. So that group, once selected, there'll be a community outreach component to that, and they'll report back to us.
Kelly,
Yep.
when is that project supposed to go under construction and be, you said completed by 2018, the station opens? Just about that?
Yeah, fall. I don't think RTD has not set the date yet for when that station opens. But the goal, if we can pull it off, is get through design in 17, in a good chunk of 17, and then move rapidly towards construction. The challenge is the segment between 44th and 47th, which goes underneath the highway, will be executed by the CDOT development partner, which is not selected. So we would just build, we have control of building 47th up to Race Court. And that includes 49th. Then we have environmental issues that we'll have to deal with on the DPS bus barn site in order to build that road through the site. But anyway, we're going to work really hard to try to make that happen. Right? And that's especially important just from a pedestrian perspective, is getting people to the station. Looks like you have a question.
Will that include, for the 49th Street, any infrastructure underground, like pipes, sewage?
To the extent we have to put utilities in the road, wastewater, we will coordinate with other city agencies. To the extent we have projects that include those utilities, we will try to coordinate those as well. But we have a bigger challenge with the environmental cleanup. That was no garbage dump. We have to address that issue as part of building that street and ultimately reclaiming that site. So that's for another effort. So that's Brighton. Campus placemaking. So this is about 3 things. So it's essentially taking the master plan that you all played a heavy role in, and so that we'll call that version 1.0. Now the campus placemaking is version 2.0. So we're going to go from 50,000 feet, which is a vision plan, and now start to bring it down to some specificity around 3 components. One is, because we're under the clock with the state on the livestock center, questioning center, and the yards to deliver those facilities, we have to fine-tune the facility programs for those 3 buildings as part of this exercise, because those will be some of the first buildings built as part of our phase 1. So that's exercise 1. Exercise 2 is the public realm, which is what the place feels like between the buildings, right? Is it a friendly place for pedestrians? Is it open and inviting? What do the roads feel like? And it's not just for cars, it's for people and horses and animals. And how do we integrate our energy waste and water system into experiential learning? So all that will be part of the public realm study, which will be a big lift as part of that work. And then the last is standards and design guidelines for the campus. So those are 3 things that this selected team will ultimately do. That RFP will get released somewhere between 30 or 60 days after the campus or the program management RFP gets released, because we want the program management team to actually manage the campus placemaking exercise. So this group, probably in September, we will have an early draft of the scope of work for you guys to weigh in, and we'll talk through the scope for that campus placemaking effort, because it's an important part, just like it was for the original master plan, that we want you guys to weigh in and make sure we've covered the things that are important to you. Questions on campus placement? The last is Delgany Interceptor, and I promise maybe it could be a good topic for next month. Barbara Frommel on our team did a presentation on the Delgany Interceptor, and I just call them what they are. They're hoop pipes, right? Those hoop pipes on the bank of the river that are in the way in gaining access to the river. So we are collaborating with Metro Wastewater, who owns those pipes. We, the city, in collaboration with the project partners, need to understand the realities of what's the option or what are the options available to move that pipe, if it's possible, and think about this project in isolation to everything else going on around it. Because that decision or set of decisions will impact the river itself. That the river study, as you know, is being led by the Army Corps of Engineers. It's an independent project. In order for it to restore the river ecologically, we've got to lay the banks of the river back. That can't happen if those pipes are in the way. We have to move railroad tracks, which I want to come back to that in a minute. But this study is all about really collaborating with, coming back and answering a series of questions for the Executive Oversight Committee on what the options could be. Is it a timing issue? And what we really want to do is make sure that we don't make decisions relative to this project that would preclude moving those pipes later, if it's a timing issue. Yes, sir.
Obviously, that hasn't been determined yet, whether the pipes will be moved or not.
That's correct. No decision.
And the Army Corps, will they impact that in any way, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's the Army Corps study as it's evolving, right? They're starting to move. You know, right now, if you stand at the top of the pipe and you look down at the river, there's a 25-foot drop.
Right.
Right? It's a very narrow channel because you've got these utilities that sit right on the banks of the river. So in order to execute or deliver the Army Corps study, assuming they want to really restore the river, which is the primary objective of that study, you have to lay the banks back. The only way to do that is to move the pipe.
No, is there possibly some federal funding?
Yeah, absolutely. There is so the challenge really, and maybe we'll get the Army Corps study team to come and present, but it's really a timing issue, right? The study ultimately goes to the Army Corps chiefs, and they actually call the actual report, the final report, the chief's report. And the chief's report approves, denies, or modifies the recommendations of the team. So let's assume the chief's report is approved, laying the banks back. So now that piece of paper that got approved goes over to Congress for appropriation. And God only knows when Congress is going to appropriate for that project, much less any other project. They haven't passed a budget in a decade. Okay? So we got to get money from the federal government. So the issue probably is more about timing than it is about moving the pipe. So we've got to make sure this project makes the right decisions so as to not preclude having that pipe moved if that's the answer. So we're trying to make the right decisions up front, knowing this project is moving forward and not waiting for the Army Corps study. Now the other issue I want, and this is a sidebar, and I will have more to share with you next month because it's, I will say that I'm concerned, is that, you know, obviously we knew going into this, the railroads were going to be a challenge. I mean, we get to deal with all four. Burlington Northern, the Santa Fe, and those guys have actually been really good. They've been great. The RTD with their new commuter rail line, and then the Denver Rock Island Railroad, which has a set of tracks that run along the river that we need to consolidate and move down the center of the site. There have been recent decisions by the Denver Rock Island that create real challenges for this project. And I don't want to say more because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that rational minds will prevail, but rational and railroads don't always go together. So I will report it back more after we have some conversations with them as to where we sit with them and what the actions could be by the city to make sure that this project can advance this plan, assuming conditions change with the railroad. So I don't want to stir this group up yet, but I may need your help. Okay?
Kelly?
Yes.
All right, I want to go back to the Delgany Interceptor study and how that's going to take place. understanding that we have not just one pipe on the natural western side, we also have one on the east side of the river as well. And if we're beginning to talk about laying back the banks of the river to accommodate this flow and all these things that are going into this, I kind of feel that there's going to be a design going into place, and some of the stakeholders along this river, I'm a little concerned about how that's going to affect them, and at what time will they be brought into this whole design process and have an understanding or have some kind of input as to how this is going to affect businesses up along the river. So what's your position?
Well, so I couldn't agree more with your assessment. That's all the more reason why we're doing the study. The Army Corps study, again, is they're not done. They have another half year's worth of work to do. Again, that's just going to be a recommendation. They have their own public process. This is the federal government through the Army Corps. They have a public process they are following relative to that project. The Delgany study that we are executing or implementing is specific to the National Western Center, because we've made a commitment in this project to do everything we can do relative to trying to restore the river. So certainly we will have a public process around the Delgany study. Back to this group, it probably will go to a larger group. It will go to folks that are interested in the river. But your question is as much for the Army Corps as it is for us.
This is just a concern that decisions don't get made, or in other words, the design doesn't get made, and we don't just get brought in at the end of it and say, this is what's.
So Vern, I can only speak for this project because it's the one I'm responsible for. You need to talk to the Army Corps team, which is the Army Corps of Engineers, about their process, but they have a public process. I fully intend to bring back our Delgany study as it relates to this project for you guys to have input. I don't feel like I'm resonating.
Not quite.
I can only manage things I have control over.
Right, but eventually it all affects everything. So that's one of the problems we've had with this whole river. Everybody's focused on their specific project and how it affects the entire river.
No, I understand.
So I'm a little, I guess I'm a little touchy about it right now from what I've been dealing with. So.
I understand and I appreciate your concerns. As the responsible party to execute this project, I need to make sure that this project, again, the goal should be, if there's a timing issue around the movement of that pipe or the Army Corps study, that we don't do things relative to this project that hurt our goal of trying to restore the river. That's a responsible task of getting input from this group, but also ultimately making a recommendation to the Executive Oversight Committee, because it's going to involve spending money for this project. And that we do the smart things, collaborate with the Army Corps, collaborate with parks, collaborate with whomever's interested, outside parties, business interests that have an interest in this river, so that we're all informed and we can make informed decisions. So you've got my commitment, at least as it relates to this project, and our responsibility for this project, that we will certainly get your input as it relates to this project. If I were Caesar, I would pull everybody together. Right? Or if we lived in China, we would just make decisions. But that's not how we roll here. You guys will be all right. That's Delgany. So any questions? Yes, sir.
Along the same lines, is looking at all these studies, is there a general study in terms of flood control, in terms of drainage? I mean, those are critical things. We saw that with Loveville Landing Park. I noted that that's about to begin. They're talking about phasing. We have no idea in terms of what that phasing may be. My understanding is that a portion of, or one of the benefits is really preventing some flooding from at National Western.
That's not accurate.
That's kind of what I've heard about.
That's not accurate.
In any event, I think that the issue of stormwater in terms of drainage, when you look at all the studies we're talking about here, it just seems like it's something that requires its own study by some experts to find out where it all stands. I know your purview is really National Western, and that's what basically your responsibility is, but the whole master plan, the whole concept that we started with, that this is more than National Western, it really involves the entire neighborhood, particularly Elyria, Swansea, and to not be looking at the impacts of stormwater and drainage and being in the floodplain just seems irresponsible.
Okay, so I'm not going to speak for Anna or her team in the NWC-CAC who plays a role in helping coordinate those larger efforts. I can guarantee you there will be stormwater issues and water, the management of water relative to the National Western, that ultimately we have to work with the Army Corps, and we have to work with parks, and we have to work with neighborhoods to make sure that water is being treated appropriately as it flows its way into the water. Because right now, the sheet flows as it has for hundreds of years into the river. So we'll do our part, and Anna and her team, along with Public Works and others, has a responsibility to make sure we're connecting all the respective projects so that the whole river is discussed as these projects come online. But she wasn't able to come through.
Why don't you?
No, go ahead, I'm a little off topic, so.
A couple things that you mentioned, or that were mentioned at the EOC meeting today, that I'm not sure where it fits in what you're saying, Kelly, but I'd like to ask you to put some details out. One is that you reported that the NUCO office had mailed 112 possible collaborators, partners, et cetera, and that the response are all around the country, et cetera. And I kind of feel like this would be the perfect timing before, while the preliminary discussions, gestures of interest are coming in. I'd love for this group to know what the scope of that 112 is. It's probably pretty exciting, collection of possible partners, et cetera. And this is a matter of asking people if they want to be, groups, et cetera, if they want to be involved. It's very preliminary, and I just ask you to bring that to this group right now in some kind of way that says, here is an engagement point early on in the process. That's where we'll feel that the things are on the table. And then one quick comment maybe to update us, and I apologize if Jocelyn mentioned this and I missed it, on that economic study that is, CSU is doing the next.
No, it's actually us.
So you mean it's NUCO office doing it?
Correct.
Okay, so CSU did the original one and this
Correct.
is the, okay. There was a timeline on that that I thought was pretty encouraging this morning too.
Sure, so happy to touch on both those. So the first is, so as part of, when you think about the vision and mission of the National Western Center campus, to be the global destination for agricultural heritage and innovation with both local and global impacts. As a precursor to adding more partners, local, regional, national, and international, we this summer pulled together a list of predominantly agriculturally based associations that run the spectrum, right, from really traditional to very specific. There were 112 of those organizations that we identified across the country. The exciting thing is many of them are located here or in the Rocky Mountain West. But as an example, Farm Bureau has a local office, but their main office is in DC. Anyway, and I will send to Liz the copy of the introductory letter we sent, as well as the list of folks we sent the letter to. And that happened about a month ago, and it was just an introduction of the project. It was a way to say, hey, this is coming. We're not really asking for anything other than if you'd like to learn more, reach out to us, and we will set up a meeting. Out of that, and I've lost count, I've probably heard back from 30 or 40 organizations from around the country, and I think we've set up a few meetings with a handful of them, and we're going to start to introduce them to the project. Obviously, it's a long timeline, but ultimately, if this is going to be a place for experiential education, and many of those associations are involved in educating the populace on whatever the topic is, then we want them to be a part of this place. So it's the first in many steps to get other entities involved in the project. But I'll send Liz a copy of the letter and a copy of the list. Now the economic study, so in November of 14, CSU issued an Ag Innovation cluster study that talked about what's going on basically between Colorado Springs and Fort Collins. And the essence of that report was there are 14 or so industries where Colorado already has a strong presence, and that there's an opportunity to grow those clusters. Water is a cluster, so Colorado is very strong in water-related issues, and a variety of others. And I think we've shared the executive summary of that report as well as the direct link a couple different times to this group, but we can resend it because it's going to resurface as we talk about this. What we did then through the Office of Economic Development is took that study and say, okay, how do we now really start to focus in on a smaller subset of those industries that might want to be located in or around the campus or along the corridor of opportunity to advance this idea of becoming the Silicon Valley of agriculture. So the report, we hired AECOM to do the work. They've been working on it for, feels like forever, but I think about 6 months. They've interviewed people all over the country, and that report is slated to come out, I believe, in early or mid-October. There will actually be an event around the release of that, what we're calling Next Gen Ag 1, because it's all about really creating the Silicon Valley of Ag. So this idea of next generation agriculture. That report will have an event. It'll probably be out here. We'll have a keynote speaker, and we will have a series of table topics around the event still being put together by OD. But it will be the first in a series of economic studies to really hone in on how we attract, grow new, grow existing, attract new to Colorado to advance our agricultural economy. Yes, sir.
I'm a member of, or on the board of the O'Leary-Swansea Business Association, local. And I've asked several times whether at least members of the board who are very active in terms of the local agricultural and business association, whether they've been contacted by the consultant to ask them about what they're doing, how they fit in, to inform them about what's happening. At no time did they ever say they were contacted, and I just think it's important that we look at the local people and make sure that they're contacted.
So Brian Dunn from Great Divide actually sat on our technical advisory committee, and I'd have to go back and ask Chris Brewer from AECOM who else within the neighborhood or the region. I know, and I don't believe, Mickey, you were here at the last meeting or a couple meetings ago when Gretchen went through the report, but at the request of this group, we actually went through and identified the specific businesses located in Global O'Leary-Swansea and by type, and then we also identified hourly rates by industry type. So there's a lot of data that's in that report that will be helpful to this group as well as others. But if folks didn't get contacted, this is the first in a series of efforts to really understand both not just the local economy, but the regional economy, the state economy, and the national economy around ag.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the local people are contacted as a part of it.
Yeah, sure. No, that's a fair question. Yep.
If I may kind of insert an announcement or just a topic.
No announcement.
Not a question for you, but since it's under land acquisition. So I don't know how many of you know, but Habitat has our warehouse along the National Western Drive, and it's on one of the properties that is being acquired by the city for this property or for this project. And so we're looking at finding new warehouse space, and we've identified potentially a spot in central Denver. It does have about 7,000 to 8,000 square feet more space than we need. And so I'm putting it out there to this group because you all are business owners, you know others who may also be in that same position of needing to relocate. And so I just put it out there. We're putting it as far and wide as possible. If you know of any other businesses who might need a small amount of warehouse space, it's not too far from here. It's at about 6th and I-25. So just put that out there.
All right, that's my NUCO update. Normally I would sit down, but I've been asked to do the NWC-CAC.
Can I just ask one quick thing too, Kelly? Just about the land acquisition. I'm just wondering an update on the Armor Building, Stock Show Association building acquisition, as well as maybe not acquisition as we had talked about, but any partnership with the Stock Show Exchange building.
Sure. So I won't provide specifics on specific buildings, but I can we have a standing report out at the Executive Oversight Committee. So we are, and just for context, we did not get money to actually start acquisition until April 2nd. Okay, so we've only been at this, it's not quite 6 months yet. But we have 61 parcels to acquire, and we are 29% into that acquisition, meaning we have 12 that we either have some form of control of, meaning we've agreed to terms, we've actually closed, we're working through the purchase and sale agreement. It's a lengthy process, right? So we're making good headway this early in the process on those acquisitions. And that's both for property owners and tenants, so we have the full spectrum of yes, sir.
Kelly, along those lines, I don't want to mention any names, but a lady called me, she said that she was given advice, she had 90 days to move.
Okay, that wouldn't have been by...
That might have been a CDOT issue.
Yeah, it wouldn't...
No,
So,
no, in the National Western.
So we are using the Federal Relocation Act, which is a very prescriptive process to protect the rights of property owners and tenants. And it is a long process. And so whether they're a tenant or a property owner, they're going to know it's not just 90 days, but a long time in advance of when and if they have to move.
Well, I told her...
I would love to, maybe you and I can talk offline, but we want, there's a lot of goofy stuff going on, and we want it to be respectful of the process, and we want to make sure there's integrity in the process.
Well, I stretched my neck out a little bit, and I told her, don't get alarmed. If whatever's happened, it's going to be in a timely manner.
Yeah, no,
I reassured her.
we are, every individual property owner will have a deal that is customized to their needs and interests.
I thought so, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and you had another, there was one other question here that I've now forgotten, but maybe. Okay, so, all right, sorry, okay. So we have sent a notice of letter of intent to the owners of the 1916 Exchange Building. We did not intend to acquire that building originally, but we have subsequently, now we are in the process of, we're going to acquire that building.
Okay.
I think we made the determination. It is so fundamental to the history of the site and to the history and to the long-term vision of the campus that we want, the campus needs to control that asset. It is it's one of the centerpieces of this campus, and it needs to be integrated into the overall plan. So we will be acquiring that building. Yep.
Do you have any rough time frame?
Just however long it takes.
Okay.
Then the others are more specific to specific buildings, other than to say we're making good progress. Obviously, the one property owner that I don't have the ability to condemn if I needed to is the railroads. And I'll leave it at that.
Just one more thing on the Exchange Building. I think that when that happens, that this group ought to make some emphasis and actually make some reference to the fact that
Betty worked there.
Betty worked there, and I also know some other people.
She's already got a street named after her.
Grandparents worked for USDA, and I personally had some experience in that building, but I had to get shit off my boots before I that's a grand building.
And it's actually 3 buildings, right?
Yes.
So anyway, we're making great progress, and we're rolling along on that. All right, anything else on? Yep.
Just a real quick, relevant backtrack. I think it's really critical as well to what John was saying. There is a 90-day minimum. There is a 90-day figure it's very clearly put in those letters. So I want to emphasize that I really think the best thing is for people to send folks to the NUCO office or send them over to PEC, which is on the letterhead, make sure they get everything they need clarified, and let there not be any misunderstanding. It is a long process, but there is a point at which you have 90 days minimum, and that you have 30 days past the point. So I don't want to, and I'm not,
after
Kelly, please let me finish.
No, let me
because I don't want to put you on the defense if that's not what you're not. So, but what I want to say to people is, please direct them directly to talk with the NUCO office or the firm, because we can't But that language is in there, that need to be understood.
And so to just put a pin in that, it's only after we get to an agreed upon deal and settlement.
Right. but
Which
it's in
could
there,
take
yeah.
a year, could take a month, whatever that is, right? Most of these take longer than that, so.
But people have received letters that activate that 90 days. There are people that are in that period.
Only after they have signed the purchase and sale agreement.
Right, but that's what I was wanting to make very clear, because by the general statement of, it's a long process, that's what I'm.
But I want to be, but there's other funny things going on
Yeah,
that
that's.
are irrelevant to the formal process we're going through to protect the rights of those property owners.
Yeah, and that, it's just a important thing, because it was a specific.
Thank you very much, reassuring.
All right. Yep. Oh,
Related to land acquisition, I'm wondering if, with CDOT, they're mandating for replacement back to the neighborhood for fresh food and housing that's lost from the project. Is the city planning on doing the same type of mitigation for the loss of Good Onion, say, and 7-Eleven and the homes?
there, so specific to the fact that it's even embarrassing to say that 7-Eleven is a food source, right?
So Stop and Shop and Highland.
Right. But that said, there is, and I would rather have Barbara and Blake, Angelo, and others maybe again next month around, but we are actively looking at a strategy to replace that lost source. That would be potentially the first step towards the larger public market. So yes, there is work afoot to try to solve that problem that we're creating by acquiring that building. But there are actually two stores, the one across the street and then 7-Eleven as well. So Blake is really helping lead the charge with Barbara and trying to find that solution.
But housing.
What?
Housing.
Well, we haven't talked about that specific to this project. I mean, there are 10 residential properties we are acquiring, 6 of which are owner occupied. That hasn't necessarily been specifically part of this project's conversation, but I'm certainly open to entertaining that if we need to do it.
Anything else for Kelly? We're still on NWC, I think. Okay, let's move to NDCC.
Okay, give me a minute. Okay, there we go. All right, I'll go pretty quick here, hopefully. And you guys, I should probably go by this one pretty quickly, but this is more of a thank you to you guys and to those involved, and to Michael Sapp in particular, and others that were involved. But
Honestly, I want to.
and AE and
I also want to thank. Well, go ahead and I'll.
let me set it up so you can at least hit the softball. So community, the city is in partnership with Mile High United Way to fund staffing resource at both Garden Place and at Swansea that they were going to lose because of a reduction in enrollment. So the city and United Way stepped up to fund that community resource for this next year, for this school year. So we have partnered on that. The school backpacks program supplies, again, many of you, AE and others were involved in that, and it's important stuff that we leave those legacies. And Ann and her team will continue to do that work. Washington Street, the consultant team, I'm just reading from the notes here, sorry, because I've been pretty out of touch with this since I moved over. Consultant team selected, and the contract is being finalized with the selected design team for Washington. They anticipate project startup in September, October, with initial outreach efforts this fall. Comprehensive community engagement approach is built into the scope. The team anticipates multiple forms of outreach and input as that design evolves. So stay tuned for more details coming out of the NDCC and Public Works on that.
You guys have an approximate date on that?
On which?
Washington Street.
Well, the design, it looks like the contract's going to get finalized here shortly, and then they'll start outreach here in September and October, so this fall. I mean, the process of designing that road will get underway this fall. Okay. Heron Pond Master Plan. So the project area includes Heller, open space, Heron Pond, Northside Park, and the relationship to city property, and obviously the river. The master plan draft goals are to create connections to open space and recreational opportunities, provide opportunities for environmental education, improve the health of the river ecosystem, complement the ongoing drainage work, engage the communities to unify the area, leverage and complement adjacent redevelopment, and position the project for implementation. It will be a role of this master planning will coordinate with other studies, urban waterways, the National Western Center, and Washington Street. So that's the 80 acres just on the other side of the river that presents a huge opportunity for this region to reclaim it.
What's the process for that?
So the selection process, it's a procurement of getting the design team picked. 11, I know this just happened this week, 11 proposals were submitted to the city. Michael's actually one of the members of the review team. A firm will be selected, and then once selected and they get contracted, the work will commence of engaging the community on planning for what you all want that space to be.
Well, I want to voice an objection, Mr. Sapp, that in this room, in this setting, about a year or so ago, I was led to believe that the Public Works, Parks and Recreation would form, and residents would form a committee to deal with that acreage over there. And that hasn't been done to my knowledge. And I would strongly suggest that you consider revising what's on the table now until that is done. We are in the process now of naming that area. And we got a lot of steam. And we don't want to blow the valve. We want to do it in a positive, constructive manner. But I personally feel that the city again has blown steam, you know where. So Public Works, Parks and Recreation, and the neighborhood need to sit down and get this ironed out before anything goes any further. So I would strongly suggest that those RFPs be set aside until that's done.
I'd like to speak to that also with John.
Can I answer his question first?
All right.
So we'll take that back to Parks. We'll take that back to Parks and we'll see what we can do. I'm not going to make any commitments
If I might make a
voting the
suggestion.
RFP back, but we'll take it back to Parks. Because what are you referring to when you say there was that the community was supposed to have, can you give me some more context on what you were referring to?
We're going to sit down and do exactly what they're talking about doing now, over a year ago. In fact, in the last 13 years, there's been a lot of instances of doing such a thing and it never came about. And I would strongly suggest that you not just go to Parks, I would take the mayor himself. Because he needs to know that we have some really, really strong feelings about the area.
Note to self. And I know Councilwoman Ortega's office is working on a naming change at Northside Park. So note to self, let's talk offline about that.
Well, I just wanted to go again and add to that because, we had also, as a community, worked with the design and a lot of things on that park for the last 3 or 4 years. And it all went nowhere. And so we already have a bunch of input that seems to get lost in the shuffle somewhere down here. And so I guess we're kind of concerned that now they're going to engage this team. They're going to come in, they're going to do a design that didn't have any input that we've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years. So that's I guess one of the big concerns.
I'm going to jump in at this point because I don't want to put Kelly or Michael in the hot seat for responding to NDC-related issues. So thank you, Kelly, for pretending to be Mr. NDCC.
Sure.
But I think we should probably save most of these for Anna because it's really inappropriate for Kelly to answer some of these.
So there's people here that.
So that's we can have a process. So, so what we're doing right now, the RFP will include a public process. So I'm just trying to gauge, like, is that not what they really want?
I think, Erica, they want to know what happens to previous public
Okay.
process.
Yes.
And how that's going to be rolled
Exactly.
into the new public.
That's a
So
fair,
with any plan that
That's a fair question.
actually, with every plan that we've done like that, we roll in
discussions with the project team to make sure that they take into consideration those pieces. Also take into consideration sort of what the discussion that's happened around Washington and really make sure that those, those two teams are working together so that everything complements each other.
John.
There's
Again,
a public process as part of that RFP.
again, I want to emphasize, we're at that thin line again. And I don't want to bog this group down with those issues. I think we can bring them back, maybe, but we're at that thin line, and business on the east side of the river is different than business that this advisory group is charged with or asked to be involved in. So I would say that if it's NDCC issue, that ought to be taken up with NDCC and the community, not Bob, the National Western. Kelly's got enough work to do with these guys. And that's another issue. And it should be dealt with NDCC, not in this form, in another form.
I'll just say, John, I appreciate that, and that's new information to me. I think the next steps is getting with you, Vern, and other folks who participated in those conversations, circling back with Councilman Ortega's office, with parks, and figuring out, I need to get brought up to speed. So let's take this offline and help educate me on how we can kind of get what you guys shared as far as what your desires were for the park, so that the design team can have that.
And I just want to emphasize, I'm going to be very jealous about those issues and maybe a little overprotective, but we've got 50 years of experience with dealing with the same kind of thing. And we should not bog this country down with that. And I'll do everything I can to keep that from happening. Okay. Thank you.
Crystal Lead.
Okay, the good news is I have one slide. So one more project. All right, here we go. Bright Boulevard. So from 29th to 44th, so south of the highway. This is a celebratory thing. We have an official groundbreaking date set. So it looks like October 13th will be the event. Details to obviously flow out. It'll be, looks like, and Erica I know has been working on this, but late morning, early afternoon, media event with the mayor, community celebration in the afternoon. And Great Divide, I think Brian Dunn has said he would host. So more details to come about a really historic day for this part of our city. And finally, obviously there's been work going on. They've been doing the undergrounding, but the official construction will commence the groundbreaking in October. Last but not least, we have, and Erica, you may want to chime in on this, but we keep working hard to create new ways to communicate using social media, Twitter, Facebook, texting. We have a texting service now through the NDCC that you can sign up for to get alerts. I think you'll see more ways that obviously that's going to become important as we actually move into construction, so that folks understand there's a construction coffee meeting that happens. And Erica, we have those dates, those are monthly, right? And they have like 50 people, 40, 50 people come to those construction meetings. So anyway, the work is starting, and this is getting the gateway started is symbolic and very real with the start of construction for Brighton. So with that, I am done. Hopefully you probably feel like you're done with me. Any final questions? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So this is the portion where we, if there are any final comments, community announcements, et cetera, AE.
I have to apologize I've been waiting for Susan Alberti to come here, and I didn't realize you were here. I apologize. I've got my dogs in our message, because I wanted to do a special thank you to Debbie Ortega's office and Susan on the August 13th event that we had in partnership with the museum and Local Cares in the neighborhood and the backpack drive and garden place, etc. Because her office and Susan, especially on the spot, jumped in to help us in the breach to get the permit and the cost for the permit and for the insurance and that kind of a thing, and just really came through along with Michael. And I just wanted to personally thank you guys, and it really was very helpful. And I just wanted to add one quick note around the engagement thing, and I'm sorry that CSU is gone, but just to elaborate on, there are events, like we were talking about, with using the venues. The engagement thing, and I think with Garden Place, with what Garden Place Academy advocates are accomplishing, with that Armando was alluding to with the USDA, et cetera, those could be curriculum-based. I think their group is very aware of that, and I'm not speaking for them, but as somebody who cares very much about the science education parts of this content, I hope that we realize these are things that we can develop in a continuum now from all kinds of directions, and that that's part of what I'm hoping that the EPAS push can continue with while it's in the hiatus and that kind of thing. And so I just wanted to fill out the situation, the awareness of the things with that a little bit before we go.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order?
Yeah, just wanted
Jim.
to get our Adelante 5K event a couple of weeks ago. I want to thank Michael and Kobe and Eric, everyone here. It was a great event. And also on October 8th, we'll have our, here at the Stadium Arena, our Fiesta on the Plaza event. So that's coming up in a couple months.
Cool. Anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, thank you all for coming out. I won't see you next month, but Maria will be back.
The meeting.
Oh, yeah, we're adjourned.